Hi, my name is Lee, and I'd like to welcome you to the Rocky Mountain Grace. Today I'm in Kananaskis country. It's a Kananaskis Trail is a route that runs through the Rocky Mountains between Longview, Alberta, and basically Canmore. It's just beautiful. Thousands of trails that you can hike on. Wildlife, I've seen everything out here. I've seen wolves, elk, Rocky Mountain sheep, grizzlies, black bears, coyotes, you name it, it's out here. Got my bear spray with me, it's just sitting by the camera. Unfortunately, we've had 2 people killed in about the last 2 weeks and within about a 40-mile radius of me at this present moment. This spot is my wife and I's favorite spot. We stop here every time we come by. There's a little bench we can sit on, we'll drink a coffee, maybe eat a sandwich. A little close to the highway, you may hear some cars going by now and then, or motorcycles, but this is one of my favorite spots. Today's story that I want to read to you is almost indescribable. It's about a set of circumstances that you're going to have a hard time believing could have happened. And it's also about hope and a man refusing to give up. And sprinkled in there is a very strange occurrence that I believe can only be explained in that the Lord had his hand in this instance. Here we go. There was a huge wind and huge swells just folded over me, one after the other. And I got to the point where I realized, if I don't get into this boat, I'm going to die, John Stockton reveals. It was this trip that John will never forget, and it started with a simple longing for the sea. I was at the place where I needed some rest, and for me, resting was going and having an adventure. That's how I recharge. John Stockton was kayaking in search of some peace and quiet. John traveled to the big island of Hawaii. Here he bought a state-of-the-art kayak and set out by himself into the vast Pacific Ocean. John's plan was to paddle up the western coastline from Kona and camp along the way. The first 3 days of his journey, the weather was pleasant, the waters calm. John says, my prayer was just, Lord, fill the day with signs of your love. I saw 2 manta rays slip right under the kayak. I saw these flying fish coming out of the ocean like a machine gun had just kind of shot up out of the water. Birds flying everywhere, all kinds of schools of fish. It was amazing. That is, until he caught sight of an ominous storm approaching. At this point, John was about a half a mile from shore, just minutes from his next campsite. As I came around the point, he recounts, I immediately saw a change in the surface of the water. The storm had jumped the northern point of the island and was heading straight toward John. The wind started getting more and more intense, and finally what ended up happening was a gust just came and capsized me. Just flipped me right over, he says. John had 2 choices, swim back to shore or stay with his kayak and paddle back. He chose to stay with his kayak. John says, I was kind of paralyzed. I didn't know what the right move to do was or to make. It was like, this is really bad. This is like the ingredients for a disaster right here. As I was looking back toward the shore, I could see the light was starting to fade. And I just started praying, Lord, this is going to be a long night if I don't get back. And I felt like the Lord said, I made it very clear. You're going to live and not die. Then John saw a rainbow in the distance. It was a promise from God that he'd need to hold on to, since where he was, the sea was still raging all around him. It was a long, treacherous night. I was just being pushed straight out to sea. We're talking 2-story sized waves, like 20-foot waves just pounding me, John explains. Every time John got the boat right side up, a wave would knock him over and fill the boat with water. I was trying to be Mr. Independent and take care of the situation, John admits, but it was so severe I couldn't make any progress. Hours later, and now more than 20 miles from shore, the storm finally subsided. John made it into his kayak and out of the shark-infested waters. For the next 21 hours, he paddled back towards shore. John was fading fast. I started yelling at myself, come on, don't you want to live? This is your chance. You've been at this work all day. Get in there. So I just gritted my teeth and I just started rowing like crazy, like a madman. That didn't last. Exhausted, John dozed off and his kayak drifted farther and farther from shore. When he woke up, he was sunburnt and helpless. I just said, Lord, my arms are like wet noodles of spaghetti. There's no strength in them. They're sore, they're tired. And I just started saying, Lord, what do I do? I felt like the Lord said, paddle and use your cell phone. Since John was so far out to sea, he figured he wouldn't get any reception, and his battery was low. But he pulled his phone from his waterproof bag, and amazingly, he acquired a signal. He dialed 911 and spoke to an emergency operator. John communicated minimal details and then lost connection. Still, the operator was able to pass on enough information to set a massive search mission into motion. When John's phone finally regained signal, he had a message waiting from a Coast Guard petty officer, Justin Acosta. John called him right back. I kinda knew the tone of his voice and just how desperate he was, and he needed our help soon, Justin recalls. I really started praying about this guy that he, at this point, just puts his trust in the Lord. I was just praying for patience and for John and for hope and just to be strong and to not give up. Meanwhile, John anxiously awaited his rescue. One plane flew over him 10 times. I came to the realization they can't see me. I'm just this little speck in the ocean. They can't see me. I started to feel this absolute dread inside of me. Night fell. John had now been stranded at sea for 3 days and 3 nights. Delusion set in. I started having these weird escapes or visions or whatever he says. I had this imaginary friend on the boat, this Japanese sailor, and I started saying, hand me the oar. Come on, do your part. What are you saying? Stop it. You're losing your mind. It started finally scaring me. I remember a saying from the pastor, when you don't know what to do what you do know, and then you know what to do. What I did know to do was a Bible study. One psalm stood out, John reveals. It was, save me, O God, for I have sunken down into the pit. I just really identified with this and I said, Lord, I'm in a pit. You're going to have to bring me out of it. I looked over to my right just as I finished reading and I heard the rumble of engines. I looked and there was this plane sweeping the horizon. Gary Phillips. It was now 5 days of John's perilous journey. He was 80 miles from shore. It was the end of the day when Navy radar operator Gary Phillips urged his pilot to make one last pass. He too had been asking God for help. I was just praying that he would put me in the right position to be able to find John, says Gary. God did. You try to imagine what 500 feet in the air, what a small kayak would look like with a person in it. And then all of a sudden, he went by. Relief swept over John as rescuers pulled him from the water. He was taken to a nearby hospital where he was treated for severe dehydration, sun, and wind exposure, and 2nd and 3rd degree burns. Later, when he inquired about the phone call he made at sea, he found that mysteriously, the phone company had no record of it. They said, I'm sorry, sir, I don't know what to tell you. You didn't call us. We didn't host it. He didn't make that call. The Coast Guard labeled it a miracle. Local papers did the same. Justin, Gary, and John all knew, when you have God on your side, anything is possible. Adds Gary, it's just a testament to the power of prayer. This is what God has done. It's a total miracle. Since the rescue, John has had time to process his battle at sea. He now realizes God knew where he was each step of the way. All he had to do was surrender, pray, and believe. It went from a place of being totally independent to just pure prayer. That to me is what the Lord was teaching me. That's what faith is. The absolute hope of things unseen, absolute hope upon hope. You can't see anything working, but you know that God is good and you know that he is loving. I know because I was in the boat. I know what name I called on it. I know what name I cried out to. And I know what name delivered me. Wow. So how do you explain the unanswered, or how do you explain the answered phone calls but no record of them? I like what he said too about how he knows what name he called on for help and which name delivered him, and how you can't always see how God is working for you, but that you can be sure that God is good and loving, and all you have to do is call upon him. Well, that is going to be the end of today's video, this video. I'm probably going to head down the highway, see if I can come across another area that I'd like to shoot something from. Remember, my name is Lee. This is Rocky Mountain Grace. If you have a story or an experience you would like to share, please email it to rockymountaingrace@gmail.com. That description will be on the thumbnail of the video and in the description below. And may God continue to bless you and yours. Bye now.